He has been a practicing architect and has designed many distinguished buildings. He is also taught at his alma mater, the University of Illinois, Notre Dame at CU. He has had virtually every leadership position in the American Institute of Architects. He also has been very active in the Architectural Foundation, as well as the Historic Denver and other civic organizations. Dennis really has walked the walk. His talk today will inform you about architecture. Now, some of you probably haven't ever thought, but every day the influence of the architecture around you plays an important part in your life, whether you know it or not. And hopefully, after briefly sharing the architecture of the last 150 years in Colorado, you will say, yes, it does influence my life, and hopefully it makes us in Denver, in Colorado, a better place to live. Will you join with me in welcoming Dennis Humphries?
Thank you. It's pretty intimidating being up here in front of so many architects, with or without bow ties. So we're going to do a little bit of a fashion show about what's been going on the last 150 years in Denver architecture. And so we're going to go on a very fast journey. And David, if I'd known you were going to be here, I would have put all of your buildings into this show. But I didn't realize that because David Tribe is really one of the great respected architects in the city. Let's see. All right. So one of the initiatives that Carl referenced is the Architectural Foundation. And a few years ago, we sponsored an event called Doors Open Denver. And 2 years ago, it focused on 150 years of architecture in Denver, which somewhat inspired me for the talk today. But I really want to also reinforce the fact that Doors Open Denver happens every April, and it's an opportunity for people to come out and enjoy the built environment in the city. During this 150-year celebration, we had 63,000 people participate in a 2-day event, so that's quite spectacular. So what are the issues that impact the architecture in Denver? And I guess you could probably say, well, they happen everywhere. But truly the economy and the boom and bust cycles has been a significant reinforcement of good and bad architecture in Denver. Obviously our climate, which is very, very different, the impact of the sun here, the impact of our water, or lack of at times, impacts what we do. The technology that as it advances changes the style and how we construct things. And then there's obviously politics. At times when we get a mayor like Federico Pena who says, imagine a great city, that really inspires architects and everybody in the town to think at a broader reach. And then most importantly, our clients. And we have had over the last 150 years, obviously some great clients because we've got some great buildings. So let's start this journey. And we're actually going to skip a couple of decades here, but Denver was founded in 1858, so we'll just use that as a milestone, and then we'll jump into some architecture of the 1880s. And one of my favorite is the Dormore School, which Robert Rochelaub designed, who held Architects Registration #1 in the state of Colorado. The building on your left is an addition that was built in 1909 by David Dryden. But Robert Rochelaub was truly a brilliant genius in the evolution of architecture here in Denver. In fact, he was also the architect for the Trinity United Methodist Church that I'm sure you're all very, very familiar with. So he was quite spectacular. So moving into the 1890s, one of my favorites is the Croke-Patterson House that was built in 1890. It's on 11th Avenue. And just as a sidelight, this is currently being renovated into a bed and breakfast. It has sat dormant for quite some time and has lost a lot of its luster. Another one of my favorites in the 1890s is the South Broadway Christian Church, which is right on Lincoln as you come into town. And you can start to see some influence of European styles here, the castle-like styles and very heavy stone architecture. And then, of course, the infamous Denver Athletic Club, which was built in 1890 and then expanded on the left there in 1892. And the architects were from Denver, Varian and Sterner. So then we move into the 1900s. And first and foremost is the state capitol building, which was designed by Elijah Myers, who actually designed 3 of the state capitals in the United States. He designed first the Michigan state capitol, then the Texas state capitol, and as we like to say here in Colorado, he got this one right with this third one here in Denver. However, he did get fired before the project was over, and they hired Frank Edbrook, a very noted local architect, to finish it out. And one of the reasons I share this building, which the dome was completed in 1908, the actual cornerstone was laid in 1895, so it took quite some time to get this building accomplished. But just today, the governor will be receiving 72 ounces of gold that will be used in regilding the dome of the state capitol. So it's coming from a Colorado mine and is a gift that one of the Colorado mining companies is providing. So it's a very important treasure for all of us in Colorado. And then in 1909, 1910, we have the Carnegie Library, which is now referenced as the McNichols Building. And David Triba has had a vision of how to recapture this building and to make it useful again, and I think we're on the path to making that all happen. The architect was from New York City. His name was Albert Ross. And then another one of my favorite buildings is the Sugar Building, which was designed by Aaron Grove and Thomas Walsh, which then was expanded with a very contemporary building along the 16th Street Mall. And it was obviously the Sugar Building was the headquarters for the Great Western Sugar Company. So moving along into the 1910 to 1920, North High School is one of my favorites. Just celebrated this past month its centennial celebration. We just put $24 million of Denver Public School bond money into this project, and it truly is an educational facility that rivals, no one can rival it in the United States. David Dryden was the architect. David actually designed 22 different Denver public schools, a very strong building. And then Union Station, the project that is currently going under restoration, was also designed by Aaron and Grove in 1914. And the wings of the building were built in 1881, and then there was a fire, and they rebuilt the central portion in 1894, and then this contemporary piece was added in 1914. And then obviously one that's dear to everybody's hearts is the Daniels and Fisher Tower, which Sterner and Williamson designed in 1911. And this is pretty much what it looks like today. Unfortunately, it was saved from demolition through some very careful and thoughtful restoration measures. And I know Barbara Paul was here a couple weeks ago speaking about preservation and its importance, and certainly this is one building that was the beneficiary of those efforts. And then another one of my favorites is Civic Center, and it was Mayor Spear who had this vision to create a really special European place in Denver, that we were no longer a cow town. We needed to be a significant place, and so we needed to have this public gathering place. And so in 1913, Frederick Law Olmsted started designing the master plans, which obviously didn't get fully realized. But what most people didn't realize, that this was really an urban renewal project. The blocks where Civic Center currently exist were packed with housing and businesses and things of that sort. And after several lawsuits, and Mayor Spear was able to prevail, and so we're the beneficiary of Civic Center. So let's move into the 20s. So if you can imagine what was happening in the world, so the Greek Theater was designed by Marion and Norton, and then the Voorhees Memorial, which here was recently restored. And so these buildings are now back to their original magnificence.